Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 13th, 2024 New Bern Board of Aldermen meeting. And the prayer tonight is going to be offered by our city clerk, Ms. Brenda Blanco.
Heavenly Father, we come to you asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support throughout this meeting. Help the board to engage in meaningful discussion, grow close as a group, and nurture the bonds of this community. Fill them with your grace as they make decisions that affect the city, and continue to remind us all that whatever is done here and whatever is accomplished is not only for the citizens of New Bern, but for your greater glory. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. If you can, please stand and do so as we pledge allegiance to the flag of our country.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Alderman Creel.
Here.
Alderman Royal. Here. Alderman Aster.
Here.
Mayor Odham.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Okay, next up is to approve the agenda. Has the board had a chance to look at the agenda? Are there any changes? If not, I entertain a motion to approve.
So,
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
the item number 5 on the consent, that's number 3 where you are.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll wait till you get to it.
Okay. We have a motion by Alderman Kinsey to approve the agenda. Do we have a second?
second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Next is request and petition of citizens. Thank you, ma'am. First up is, he didn't put his title, but I'll refer to him as Senator Bob Brinson of 5012 Lakeshore Drive. Familiar face.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board, for allowing me to speak. I didn't get the opportunity to officially say goodbye. There was a lot going on. As you know, about 3 weeks ago, I was nominated by the Republican 2nd Senatorial District. And then a week after that, I was appointed by Governor Roy Cooper to fill the unexpired term of our Senator Jim Perry, who resigned. And so since I could not hold 2 offices simultaneously, I had to resign my position as Alderman in order to become a senator. So while I regret leaving you with a opening on your board, I've been called to serve even more citizens now, and so that's why I did that. So first of all, I'd like to thank God for the opportunity that He's given me to do this. I want to thank my wife for allowing me to do it as well. And I also want to thank this board for the encouragement and the dialogue and the prayers both well before this campaign and during it. I appreciate all of you and the desire to serve and our diverse opinions and our willingness to work together for the benefit of New Bern. And I intend to take this mentality to Raleigh and be a neighbor serving neighbors. And so while I may no longer be on this board, it does not diminish my willingness to work with you to keep New Bern a great place to work and play. Although I won't be on this board, I'm still a citizen of New Bern. I hope that my departure does not diminish the momentum that we were starting to build on projects and the things that we were beginning to accomplish, either through the bike and pedestrian plan committee and progress that they were making, the Stanley White Rec Center, the employee pay parity that we were working through, and I was certainly looking forward to the future discussions on the revenue bonds so that we could do even more. And so I hope that my vacancy and I hope that the person that you appoint to replace me will continue that legacy to make New Bern a great place. And then thank you to the city manager and to the staff so much for your honesty, your professionalism, your determination and support to this board and to our citizens. You are truly our best asset, and I don't say those words lightly. And so mayor, board, staff, and constituents, I know all of you still have my phone number. So please let me know how I can help in my new role. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Congratulations. Next up is Mr. Mac Flythe of 5202 Trent Woods Drive.
All right, my name is Matt Flythe Bike Shop. I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to air my problems and concerns. In the past, I've noticed, and I commend newer employees for the camaraderie and teamwork they have in keeping informed on this issue. I've always heard that nice guys finish last, and I sort of believe that. So a couple of weeks ago, I figured I would come here and play it a little harder. But as time went on, I realized that was not my character. So I toned it down, toned my whole presentation down. Believe me, I toned it down a lot. So I'll be as brief as possible. First, I'd like to remind you where I come from. Almost 50 years ago, I opened a bike shop, 1977. The first week in business, someone broke in and wiped me out. Most people would have quit then. Since then, I've had over 42 break-ins. I didn't give up because I had to protect my investment. I persevered then, and I'd like to continue now. I am here tonight trying to protect my investment, as I would guess each and every one of you do the same. A couple years ago, I came before the board and reported the storm drainage ditch next to my building, Flythe Bike Shop, was collapsing due to excessive runoff. This ditch handles water runoff all the way back to H.J. McDonald School, including the several residential areas, and is eroding the side of my building, the bank on the side of my building. In fact, at the back corner it exposed my foundation, which I paid Carolina Foundation to fix. One side note, there used to be about 8 feet between my building and the ditch that I kept mowed. Of course, that's impossible now. Picture 1A shows water level during the heavy rain. Again, this is due to all the new construction upstream. After a year or so, they attempted to fix it. Now the situation is worse than before. After taking all the vegetation out, from what I saw, and I watched 80% of the work being done, I did not see them repack the soil as they did on the other side of the ditch. They also installed rock on the other side all the way up to the top and over the edge. On my side, they only ran it up halfway, not addressing the main part that was eroded. Since that time, my side has collapsed even more. In fact, it has dropped 2 feet. Also, grass and bushes are protruding through the rock, and I have no way of cutting it, and I shouldn't have to cut it. I thought the ground cover they put down before putting the rock in would eliminate the growth. So, now I'm going to show you the job they did for my stormwater ditch versus the job they did at the same time on Red Robin Lane. Picture 1 shows the other side of the ditch. Right here. Picture 1 shows the other side of the ditch. Notice it goes over the top edge. It looks pretty good. Picture 2 shows my side. Very uneven. Picture 3 and 4 show the rain gutter here and here. Pipes laying on the rocks to extend the gutters out to the ditch. Picture 5 after a couple months shows the same pipe broken off because the bank collapsed. Now none of the gutters are supported anymore. They're just hanging there. Picture 6 shows the grass growing through the rocks. Is it because of no ground cover? I don't know. That's what has to be answered. Whoops. I'll drop the main part of it then.
Mr. Flythe, as always, happy to meet with you, staff, at any point in time. We can meet on site and take a look at it. We'll figure out which alderman covers this area as well, and we can look at it on site and finish the conversation if you'd like.
All right, if you go back and look at Red Robin Lane, You look at mine, totally two different jobs. Totally two different jobs. I mean, I'd love to show those pictures, but
Yes,
it's
sir.
a totally different job.
All right, thank
It
you.
can't be this way.
And Mr. Flight, I concur with you. From what you're showing us here and from looking at Red Robin, they are two totally different jobs. I
Thank
agree
you.
with you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the consent agenda. It's the board's pleasure on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'd like to make a, if the board so allow, make a change, because I see we're saying here we're going to close the streets for the Christmas parade, and I really wanted more discussion about the Christmas parade. I didn't know if any other aldermen want to discuss the Christmas parade as the city actually sponsoring it this year. So,
If you'd like to, you can make a motion to approve the consent agenda and pull item number 5, and we can discuss that separately if you'd like to do that.
well, I don't want to do that. Can I just get the consensus of the board right now? If you're interested in yes or no, having the city having a parade or not, then we can move on. I don't have to pull it and discuss it.
I have no issue with the city doing the parade.
I have no issue with it either. In fact, I think we should do it.
I have no issue, but if it needs to be discussed, I believe this was raised in the last meeting regarding discussing it. So I'd like to make the motion to pull it from the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to pull item number 5 from the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, let's discuss item number 5, and then we'll go back to the consent agenda.
My only, it's not an issue because I want us to have a Christmas parade. I think it's really a plus for our citizens, but I just want to make sure that Mr. Hughes or Ms. Warren did, I know you discussed before that no one came forth, no other organizations or nonprofits or anything came forth to take on this task. So my thing is, who did you reach out to? Did y'all reach out to any organizations or?
So I'm going to ask Parks and Recreation Director to come up. She has been the one that's been working on the parade
Thank you.
project. So here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So we did not reach out to any other organizations about doing it. We typically do not recruit organizations to carry out city-sponsored events. If in the future y'all want us to reach out to people, I'll be more than glad to do that, but that's not something we have traditionally done.
Okay. Well, now I know it was discussed before that you were going to reach out to some nonprofits and see if they want to come in and help join it to put on this parade.
Last year we talked about it with a few people who were part of the JCs previously, but we did not reach out to anybody specifically. Not this year.
Okay. So, and it wasn't advertised or anything? So, I mean, was there any advertisement put out?
No, I mean, like I said, historically, that's not something we have done to advertise city-sponsored events to have people come in and put them on. So if that's direction going forward, that we want to recruit people to put on city-sponsored events, then I'll be more than glad to do that.
Okay. Because I was just thinking, why wasn't it included with Mary Berry?
They had no interest in...
Okay. But there again, that's what I'm saying. There again, no, you didn't reach out to anyone. So how do you know if someone would have come forth and want to participate and take on some of the responsibility of the parade? And don't get me wrong, I want the parade, but I just think that it should have been
can I make this
advertised.
comment?
And it should, it should have been advertised. It should have gone in the paper or something, city website, something. It should have been advertised, and just to see who would have come forth, just like the JCs sponsored it all those years. There may have been some other organizations.
Can I make this comment that even if another organization came forward and did it, we would still be doing the same amount of work, minus coordinating the participation.
Okay. Well then, now since you said that, I want to make this statement. So you're saying that you have enough staff, that staff would not be overworked from sponsoring this parade, because it's on a weekend. You have participation, you have Public Works, I'm assuming is going to be helping you with this, and fire and police, just like they do other city-sponsored events.
Correct.
My main thing is the staff, your staff, that you have enough staff that you can sufficiently put on this Christmas parade, and nobody is feeling like they're overworked.
The same number of staff for this is what we support Black History Month Parade with, as well as Shriners Parade. So if we're not going to have staff work to do a Christmas parade, then we don't need to support other parades.
Now, I ain't saying not have them work. I mean, you have enough staff to work so that no one feels like they're being overworked. So,
From Parks and Recreation last year, we used 6 staff. From Public Works, we used 3, and then from Police, we used 8. And they worked for 5 hours each.
Even if when the JCs were sponsoring this, did you still have to have staff involved?
Absolutely. They did. They coordinated it, but we still had to have staff on site to put out barricades. We had to have PD to lead the parade, block the intersections, and then Public Works would come behind and pick up the barricades as the parade went on.
Carrie, regarding Parks and Recreation staff, how do you get those employees to how do you schedule them?
For our Parks and Grounds staff, at the beginning of each year, we put out the event schedule from January to December, and they volunteer for the ones they want to work.
So you mentioned they volunteer, but they're paid. Correct?
Yeah, they get time and a half if they go into overtime.
that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
No, as I said, I certainly support it. I enjoy the parade. I think it's wonderful. Just because we brought it up in the last meeting, I felt that we needed discussion on it.
I think it was one of the best parades that we've had in years. To be honest with you, last year, I think Carrie and her staff did a wonderful job putting it on.
So, just point of order, since we pulled item number 5, I'd like to entertain a motion to either approve or deny item number 5, and then we would move on to the consent agenda.
And I make a motion that we consider a resolution closing specific streets for the 2024 Christmas parade and Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now we're back on the consent
Just for
agenda.
clarification, you mentioned Thanksgiving. That's item 6. That's still part of the consent agenda.
Oh,
So
okay.
it would be separate.
Okay, so I'll just cut it off at the Christmas parade. Is that correct?
Yeah, item number 5 is what we were discussing, so.
Okay.
So now we're back, consent agenda, which is items 6 through 8. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion we approve the agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Prill.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Aster.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, and I want to go back, since item number 5 is a resolution, we probably need
We do.
a roll call vote. So are we good with 6 through 8?
We are.
Okay, and then we'll go back to item number 5. So item number 5, instead of a voice vote, we're going to do a roll call vote, starting with Alderman Royal, please.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Aster.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, that motion carries. Now, we're moving on to item number 9, update on the inaugural season of the New Bern South Paws. Mr. Hughes.
We're happy to have Dave Cacavero to represent the South Paws and tell us how the inaugural season went. So Dave, please come on up.
I want to thank you all for having us out here. I'm Dave Cacavaro, and this is Coach Hunter Hackney. He was our head coach for the inaugural season, and will be moving forward as well. It was 7 months ago I stood up here, and we were discussing whether or not to move forward with the lease on Kafer Park and whether or not the South Paws were going to exist. And since that, a lot has happened, and I am super thankful to all of you. Foster and I have had many communications throughout. Mayor Odham, you've been out there at a bunch of the games, and we've been in communication throughout, but we want to give you all an update of what happened this season. It started off with the end of May 25th. We had our opening weekend. We played a couple of games against some area high school kids. And total attendance for those nights was over 3,500 people between the two nights, probably closer to about 4,000 if we actually had an exact count. The way we operate is kids under 10 are in free to all of our games, and we let the neighborhood kids come in and hang out with our ball players and the coaching staff throughout as well. So we don't even count those in those numbers. On May 31st, that was our first official game. The mayor came out to try to throw a first pitch. Luckily, there's no video of it, but there's a picture of him standing up there. And that got our season started against league play. So that was really exciting for us. We played against the Jacksonville Osprey, which is another new team in the league this year. And we played as our alternate ego. We play as the Southpaws, left-handed bear pitcher. If you don't know what a Southpaw is, it's a left-handed pitcher. But on Friday nights, we also played as the New Bern Nightcaps in honor of the pirate traditions here in New Bern. And we didn't want to directly draw from ECU, so we are the Nightcaps on every Friday night home game. During the first couple of weeks, we had our players that were new to the area coming from all over the country, and Coach Hackney can tell you a little bit about that. We got them out in the community right away. Before our first game, they were out helping out with special needs baseball. On our very first night, we actually honored the special needs baseball program, and they were a huge part of what we did throughout the season. We even did an autism awareness night, which is what this hat is all about, raised $1,000 to help with special needs baseball in our community. They helped us out with post-game meals, and we had a great partnership with them throughout. We had our players out at Kirkman's Farm, getting to know the people of Cove City as well. On the second weekend that we're out here, they were working a farm event, friends and family farm event over there. And then when I was up here talking with you guys last time I was here, I talked about our community involvement. That was the most important part. And the community showed up for us, whether it was the post-game meals, having different businesses, the food trucks, local food trucks helping us out. Broad Street Takeout was a huge help with us figuring out how to run food trucks at the park. They were a great part of what we were doing. And on June 20th, one of our players from Chicago did some research on the field for us and found out that June 20th was the date in 1971 that Stanley White actually passed away on that field at Caker Park, getting it ready for a game that evening. So we did a Juneteenth celebration on June 20th this year, and it was one of our most attended games of the season as well. So we've decided that's going to be a big part of what we're doing. We're working with Billy Moore and getting that going every single year as part of what we're doing. But again, all of this was possible because the city manager and I stayed in close communication throughout. Mayor Odham and I talked quite a bit. A few of you guys were able to come out to some of the games throughout as well. We worked with the Chamber of Commerce. Team started off slowly on the field. We still had fans coming in, but the team was not off to a good start. First half didn't go well for us. Turned things around, and we actually not only won the second half, but we finished the season with the best record in our division in our first year in existence. We got a late start on recruiting. We did not have as much time as the other teams had to recruit. Usually you get about a year. We actually just got our first player for next year already. And so we got a very late start, but these guys bought into the community of New Bern. We have one player whose family is actually going to be moving to New Bern as part of this experience as well. We're starting to look for homes for them in the New Bern area. So that's nice to be a realtor as well, so I'm able to help out with that. Overall attendance, we were shooting for 20,000. We got 10,000 in the first half of the season, so I was hoping to grab another 10,000. Rain started hitting us in July, and it hasn't stopped since then. So we probably finished with about 15 to 17,000 people, and we lost about 4 or 5 home games in the process. So I think we would have been able to hit that 20,000 mark as a way. And in case you didn't know, today is actually National Southpaw Day. So appreciate you guys having us out here for this because it is a day to recognize left-handers across the world. And so we're really, really happy to be part of this. And Coach Hackney, if you want to talk a little bit about the players or just where they came from.
We recruited players from all across the country, and they enjoyed being in New Bern. They enjoyed the community support that we had. I remember the second half of the season, it was a Tuesday night, and we had to push a game start back to 6:30. And we had about, I'd say 400 or 500 people there just watching us warm up. And we ended up with 1,000 people total that night, and the kids just thoroughly enjoyed it. I think we're going to have probably at least 50% of those kids come back and play just because they enjoyed being in New Bern and enjoyed the fan support. They enjoyed all the kids after games, before games. They enjoyed the camps that we ran in the community, and they just all around had a great time. And I tell everybody it was probably the best summer of my life. So I appreciate you guys approving it, and I appreciate Dave working through everything and making my part just handling the players in the field.
And the players had their families come as well, so they stayed in the local hotels, they ate at the local restaurants. It was not just these college kids being part of the community. Their families came and would spend a week, 2 weeks, sometimes. Some of them spent the whole summer here. So we had players that were local, played at New Bern High, Pamlico High School, West Craven High School, but we also, and he coaches over at West Craven High School at West Craven Product. But we had players, like you said, from Texas, California. We had interns from all over the country as well, from D1 schools all the way down to small community colleges across the country. So thank you all very much.
Board have any questions?
I would like to ask a question. Again, thank you so much for what you bring to our city. I know that initially when we began this discussion with you regarding the Kafer Park, we talked about citizens and their concerns with balls flying over. We talked about the parking. Did you encounter any of those situations during that time?
We had lots of suggestions from fans. The only complaint we had was that we did not have enough merchandise to sell to the fans. No one complained. We had a couple of cars hit by foul balls. No one complained about that. We had no issues with people complaining about parking. They really liked the parking situation. If you want to park close, it was at your risk. If you wanted to park far away, there was enough distance. It was close enough that you could still walk to the park. Didn't have any concerns about the amount of handicap parking as well. There were literally no complaints at all, other than the merchandise issue. We sold out the second weekend we existed, and it was impossible to get stuff fast enough to get back out there. The season's only about 2 months long. Players play about 50, 55 games in about 60 days. So it was a really quick turnaround for us. But no, the logistics of how that all worked, no complaints at all. We had stuff to learn from it. We noticed we've got to do a better job securing our perimeter because kids were running in the street to get some foul balls. So we found ways to police that and control that. And we just adapted as we went along, but again, no complaints at all.
Okay. You brought up a very good suggestion. You said if you park close, you park at your own risk, that type thing. Do you have that disclaimer posted?
No, we don't, but that's a good idea for us to do that. But it is a industry standard. It is I don't know what the legal term would be for it, but it's an assumed risk that you take parking near a ball field at all times, whether it's rec fields or professional fields. It's the same thing. We don't have signs like that out at Creekside or out at West New Bern Rec Center, so it's not something that would come to mind, but it wouldn't take much for us to get a sign made and put that up. Absolutely.
Well, again, thank you so much for what you brought to our city.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how many games I attended quite a few, and that first one that I attempted to throw the pitch out, so thanks for reminding everybody of that one.
Yes, attempted is the right word.
I made some comments, and I just asked the community to continue to support this, and don't let it be a one-hit wonder, because that first weekend was great. All the high school families were there to watch their players, but, Hunter mentioned that Tuesday night. It was actually a night that we had a board meeting, and we got through fairly early, maybe earlier than what we got through tonight. But when I left here, I rode by there, and I called you the next day. I said, what in the world was going on? Because it was just packed for Tuesday night. That was my concern, is during the weeknights, how was the attendance going to be? But, New Bern did what New Bern does.
Yeah, I think our average, based on the numbers that Foster had given us, was somewhere around 700 to 800 people a night. That night you're talking about, we were well over 1,000. We got corporations involved, so that night in particular was Keller Williams corporate night. They honored their families and friends to come out. We had Craven Community College, international paper, different corporations would come out, and Farm Bureau was another one, and do specific events at the park. And so we tied those into the weeknights to make weeknights just as popular as the weekends. There really wasn't much of a difference, and he will tell you our attendance numbers versus when we would go on the road. It was a big difference, and the players fed off of that.
One last thing, if you could just maybe share with everybody what some of the things you're working on for the off season and some of the other local places that's going to be utilizing the field.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So the field is going to be in use nearly year-round. So right now, the men's league, the East Carolina Adult Baseball League, is playing out there, or they're trying to, but every day they try to play and more rain comes. So they're using the field for free. We're supplying them the field, and they're doing that. And then in the spring, Epiphany Baseball will be using the field for free as well. They gave us buses for transportation, so we are giving them the field use during the spring. So that's going to be a real good feeder into our season. And then there's talk about Pamlico High School possibly having to use it because they're building their new school, so they don't have a field out in Pamlico. So we might be working with that. My son plays out there, so that's a possibility, playing it around the Epiphany schedule as well. And then in the future, I've had conversations with the league ownership. They are trying to be more hands-off and give more to us to handle locally, because every community is different, and New Bern is different than most, the way we operate and the way our citizens exist, so many from out of town and everything. So they're allowing us a lot more ownership in what's going on. And as a result of that, we're going to try and do other things like other tournaments baseball-wise, but maybe doing concerts or movies in the park or things like that as well. So we've got a lot of ideas, but it's just going to be a question of we had to get through this first season, and now we'll put into play what else we'll do in the off seasons. But we'll keep it in use year-round.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Next up is item number 10, conduct a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance to rezone 201 South Glenburnie Road from C4 Neighborhood Business District to I-1 Industrial. Mr. Goff.
Evening, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. How are y'all doing tonight?
Very good.
So our first item is the rezoning for 201 South Glenburnie Road. The applicant is Sean Corcoran, and the owner is Corcoran Rentals LLC. And again, its location is off of South Glenburnie Road. It's currently zoned C4, which is commercial, and the proposed zoning is I1, which is industrial. And the property is about 0.85 acres. So this vicinity map shows its location. It's right adjacent to the intersection of South Glenburnie and Wendy Hills Court. This photo just notes that we did post a sign per legal requirements, and it was posted on July 9th. And the mailed notice was sent to every property owner within 100 feet of that property. And as a summary for the commercial zoning district C4, it's been established for the principal use is to provide retailing of goods and services, mostly to neighborhood areas. And the summary for the I1 zoning district, it's mostly meant for industrial uses such as manufacturing, as well as wholesaling activities. But there are certain uses that don't fall into that category that are allowed. This use comparison table shows all the uses in both districts that are permitted by right, as well as some that are permitted by special use. If it's not on this table, it's likely not permitted. Some unique differences between the I1 and the C4 zoning district would be uses such as storage yards for equipment, either renting or just plain storage. And this zoning map shows the zoning around the property. Everything in gray to the east, south, and southwest are all already zoned I1. And across the street, you'll see some traces of C4 and then the R10 zoning district, as well as the R6 zoning district, which both of those are residential. And this future land use map shows that this property is identified as developed, and that category mostly pertains to how dense this area already is and how it's going to be developed in the future. We project that this will be a more dense area for commercial uses as well as higher density residential. And this aerial imagery shows the conditions on site. It is a vacant property, and across the street you can see some multifamily development. To the northeast, you'll see a convenience store as well as some other businesses off to the east and southwest. And again, these photos just show those existing conditions on site. Some considerations for this proposal is at the June 20th Planning and Zoning Board meeting, they recommended approval of this unanimously. They based this recommendation on the consistency with the city's land use plan and the 2022 land use plan update. And again, the property is adjacent to several properties that are zoned I1. It is also adjacent to properties zoned residential and C3. And if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions, board?
When the application was presented, or the request was presented to planning and zoning, did the applicant make mention of what they intend to build on the property?
As far as intents, he mentioned storage. He intends to expand upon his current existing business, which stores equipment.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time, I will open the public hearing for item number 10. If anyone would like to speak for or against the project, please come forward.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thanks for having me. My name's Cheryl Sawyer. I own the property at 3415 Oaks Road. I'm not against rezoning it. The only concern I've got is the amount of water that's coming on my property since they were hauled in so many loads of dirt to raise that property. And it seems like the water's been going on my back part of my property. I called them a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, and they said they're going to put a retention pump. But something needs to be done, either a ditch or a retention pond needs to be added to this property. I got a picture here I took last Thursday, and we've had a lot more rain since last Thursday. Is there any way you can see it?
Colleen would have to cut the machine on, but I will tell you, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's any development that's done on that, they will have to make arrangements to handle the stormwater runoff. So it's all currently pervious surface now, so if they add any impervious surface, that's going to have to be accounted for in the development process.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, sir.
Like I say, I don't have anything against rezoning it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
There's no one else. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. So the board, what is the pleasure of the board on item number 10?
Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt an ordinance to rezone 201 South Glenburnie Road from C4 Neighborhood Business District to I-1 Industrial.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Aster.
Alderman Aster?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Creel?
Yes.
Alderman Royal?
Yes.
Mayor Odham?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to item number 11, consider adopting a memorandum of understanding with the Jacksonville Police Department for use of the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. Chief Gallagher, welcome back.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Good to be back. I was pleasantly surprised when I got back, it was raining. I'm very excited to be here today to present an opportunity that the New Bern Police Department has sought for the past 3.5 years, to have access to a fully functional NIBIN system. And in the memorandum I provided for you has some information about what NIBIN actually is. At a crime scene, we are able to collect fingerprints and use that fingerprint information, run it through a national database called APHIS, and are able to identify who owns that fingerprint if it's in the system. If we're able to collect DNA, we are capable of running that through a national database system called CODIS, and if somebody is in that database, we can identify who they are relatively quickly. What we were not able to do is utilize the national database through NIBIN in an efficient manner. We would collect ballistic evidence, and we would have to send that off to the state lab, and we are subject to their procedures and their backlog. And by the time we retrieved the information necessary to make our cases, that evidentiary information oftentimes does not provide us with the leverage to solve some of these cases. In ballistic terminology, if I could use an analogy, it's like milk. The shelf life of that goes bad pretty quickly. So part of the solution to trying to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars is we sought out grants to give us this opportunity. And the same grant that Jacksonville Police Department was awarded was the same one that the New Bern Police Department sought out. So although we were very disappointed in the fact that we did not get that grant, I was able to take some of my staff. We went out and spoke with the chief in Jacksonville and some of their leadership. They understood our problems because they were seeking the same solutions, and we came up with a solution. Jacksonville Police Department will give us unfettered access to their equipment just as if it was our equipment on a weekly scheduled basis. Our staff would be responsible for the maintaining of all the ballistic evidence, running it through the process and uploading into their system just as if that evidence, or just as if that NIDA system was in our own facility. We also have opportunities for access under exigent circumstances. This is a win-win for us. We are going to follow the necessary procedures outlined by the ATF. We will send 2 of our staff to the National Training Facility in Huntsville, Alabama, get them certified, and we will have access to this very important equipment, and we believe will be far more efficient and effective in solving some of our gun-related violence. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Board have questions?
If there's no discussion, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a memorandum of understanding with the Jacksonville Police Department for the use of the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Kinsey.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Aster,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
I have the next 2 items.
Yeah, you do, and I've got a note that we can combine 12 and 13 if we would like, so I'll read them both. Number 12 is consider adopting a resolution approving a grant from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program for Law Enforcement Liaison. And item number 13 is consider adopting a resolution approving a grant from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program for overtime. Chief.
Once again, we have access to $55,000 of grant funding to assist us in our efforts to combat reckless driving and other driving violations. This is the same grant that we have sought and received for many, many years. We've been very good stewards of the utilization of those grant fundings, and I ask that you approve once again both grants to allow us to meet our mission and to save the taxpayer that $55,000.
Pleasure of the board on item number 12 and 13.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve 2 items. First being approving a grant from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program for Law Enforcement Liaison, and second, approving a grant from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program for overtime.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Best.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Aster,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, those motions carry. Thank you, Chief.
Chief, before you leave, can I, quick question. This morning, around 6:30, 6:45, did the department receive notice of a possible shot being fired in the Riverside area?
Yes, we did. That shot was fired by one of our police officers to euthanize a deer.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, item number 14, acceptance of the tax collector's annual statement settlement for tax year 2023. Ms. Ostrom.
The North Carolina General Statutes requires the tax collector to annually submit the tax settlement report to the governing board. The report includes the total levy, releases, write-offs, and delinquencies. The Craven County tax collector has provided the 2023 tax settlement as of June 30th, 2024, reporting a 99.39% collection rate, totaling $17,041,000 $105,715.20 collected and $106,473.32 in delinquent, and the municipal service district collection rate of 99.91%, totaling $215,213.25 collected and $215.55 delinquent. It is requested that the board make a motion to accept the settlement reports, which will be entered into the minutes.
Does the board have questions or comments?
Yes, I do, Ms. Ostrom.
Mm-hmm.
I see you have the delinquent taxes here. At this point, and that's not the question I want to ask you, the motor vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I know Craven County doesn't collect motor vehicles anymore, so you get that information from the state, correct? From NC Department?
Correct.
So I thought maybe that would be included here. Can you provide to me or, this board, what amount of motor vehicle taxes have been collected?
Sure, we'll be able to provide that when we get our final settlement, which is usually...
I'm talking about for the end of June.
Right, we haven't received all of that yet.
You haven't received that yet from, okay. All right. So that you will provide that to us?
Sure.
Okay, I just wanted to know what amount of taxes, motor vehicle taxes were collected. And another question, the delinquency. I know for 2020 through 2022, delinquent taxes. And now we have 2023 delinquent taxes that we added on to that. Have you or your staff or anyone, whomever balances your taxes within your department, do you have a spreadsheet or that data where you can provide to me, the board, of how much of those delinquent taxes have been collected?
Yeah, we can provide that to you.
Is that information is supplied to you monthly through the county, or how is it the delinquent taxes collected?
So I don't think that we have that broken out by year, but we can get that. So we know how much we collected in delinquent taxes, but I'm not quite sure that it indicates that we track which year it is necessarily. That's done by the county. But I can just pull that information and get that to you.
Okay, and the reason why I'm questioning this is because, with 2023 taxes on added to that, you're looking at like $459,000 of uncollected taxes. So I just wanted to know what amount of those years from 2020 to up to 23 have been collected. And reason why? Because that is tax revenue that is owed to this city, and after a period of time, those taxes will be written off. So that's revenue that we'll have written off. And that was my question. That was all I wanted to know. Have you or your staff or anybody even discussed delinquency taxes with the county and how they plan on what remedies they have for collection, or it's?
I can reach out to the new tax collector and have that discussion. No, I've not recently had a discussion with them, but we'll do that.
I'm certainly not the expert here, but when does the lien process kick in if someone doesn't pay taxes?
Well, the liens are valid to the end of the world. By statute, after 10 years, the taxpayer has a defense not to pay it. It's been my experience, though, that those that end up past 10 years are properties that might be generating $10, $15 a year in taxes, and the cost of enforcement greatly exceeds the money to collect, even if you foreclosed and got the property back.
So the $400 and some thousand that Alderman Best mentioned, there would be liens attached to those properties, correct?
The tax lien exists until the end of the world.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other?
And I have to make a correction, Attorney Davis. Some of those taxes are more than $15.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Those are the ones that I was suggesting that a portion of that giant number are very small amounts that are not cost effective. If they're cost effective, they are pursued through tax foreclosure, meaning that you will lose your property if you don't pay your tax.
I just feel that Craven County, there's a lot of remedies there that they can utilize for collection of taxes.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
And I just think that's a lot of money. For 4 years, that's a lot of money. And I just think,
Well, Alderman Best, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think the board should be made aware that the county that has been doing our tax collection, I guess since you retired, has been doing that under agreement for a 1% fee. We got notice recently that they are going to be increasing that fee to 1.5%.
And they've given us a 2-year notice, so we included that in the weekly report that first week in July for the board.
So it may be something, the reason I think the 2 years is in there is because that gives us the opportunity if we wanted to look at an alternative method of collecting taxes. Now keep in mind that 1% is based off of the tax revenue that is billed and that process, and obviously there was a reevaluation that was done, so things have grown. They're taking in more money. I think when we first started that agreement, it was a lot less. It was still 1%, but it was a lot less than what it's costing us now. I believe that notice has gone out to all of the towns and municipalities within the county, and I just wanted to make this statement because it's a factual statement that the county, whether or not they are sending out joint bills for municipalities and townships, when they send the county bill out, they're going to have to continue to do that regardless of whether they do it for us or we do it separately. So I don't quite understand the logic in increasing that fee, but at least we have 2 years that we can look at some alternatives if staff decides that's something we should do.
Attorney Davis, I've been out of the tax for a period of time, and I know there's changes that always occur, but to my knowledge, with the county and the collection of taxes for the city, it is required by law that a bill be sent to customers.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Still
to
the rule. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to make sure that legislature change all the time, and I know what kind of changes have come into effect. And currently, what amount, Kim, are we paying the county right now? Isn't it $200 and some $1,000 for tax collection?
Yeah, so we budgeted $190,000 and we paid $175,000.
This 23 tax collections?
For 20, yep, 175,300. And then if we were to do the 1.5% as it calculated as it is this year, then it would be $87,650 more.
So that would be $220,000?
Yeah, and if we go based on budgeted, then we're looking at, because the values will change. So if you just do based on budgeted, you're looking at about $285,000.
To what?
$285,000 would be the rate.
I think it's starting to get to that point where I don't know how much benefit there is to doing this agreement, but we've got time to talk about that later.
There is stuff in legislation right now that we would have to be responsible for going out and putting notices on the property when, for the lien. So, I mean, there's added cost there too.
What do you mean? What are you saying, putting notices on?
So apparently it would be our responsibility to post the notice on the property.
For foreclosures.
For foreclosures,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
all right, okay, got you.
Mayor,
Yes,
let me
ma'am.
just add to that. Ms. Kemp, when you send out that information to the board, would you include those numbers that you just quoted, the 1% and the 1.5%, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything else on item number 14? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the annual statement.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to item number 15. Looks like we can also combine 15 and 16. So number 15 is to consider adopting an ordinance to amend the Drainage Improvements Project Fund. And number 16 is consider adopting an ordinance to amend the Resiliency and Hazard Mitigation Plan Project Fund. Ms. Oshman.
Sure. So number 15, that ordinance amends that project fund to recognize a $250,000 Golden Leaf grant for Elizabeth Avenue drainage improvements and $150,000 for a North Carolina land and water grant for the Duffy Field Stormwater Enhancement Project. There are no matching funds that are required for either of those grants. For number 16, the ordinance amends the Resiliency and Hazard Mitigation Plan Grant Project Fund to recognize a building resilient infrastructure in communities, also known as BRIC grant, in the amount of $217,500. This funding provides $200,000 for the Duffy Field Canal planning and project scoping and $17,500 for grant management costs. A match of $150,000 was provided and already awarded by the North Carolina Attorney General for the Smithfield Environmental Enhancement Grant. It is requested that the board adopt these budget amendments as presented before you.
Board have questions?
Yes, George, I would like to know at what areas this drainage improvement. If you don't mind coming up, please, sir. The $250,000 grant for the Elizabeth Avenue drainage, is that the one that's actually for where I know Alderman Kinsey area and my area are there together? Is that particular area?
No, ma'am, it's not the railroad track.
Okay.
It's actually one that's going into that neighborhood.
Okay.
On the other side of racetrack. It was identified in a prior drainage study of Elizabeth Avenue needing to be upsized.
But since you mentioned it, has there been any other talks about that particular area for, as the railroad is concerned, where his
We actually put in the request to Golden Leaf in that grant application, that culvert. We did not receive grant funding this cycle for that. We did receive Elizabeth Avenue though.
Okay, so I'm assuming you will apply.
We're going to
again.
continue. We're going to continue. Yes,
All right, thank you, sir.
It's a pleasure of the board on item 15 and 16.
Mayor, make a motion to adopt the ordinance to amend the Drainage Improvement Project Fund. And make a motion to adopt an ordinance to amend the Resiliency and Hazard Mitigation Plan Grant Project Fund.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Best.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Aster.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 17, consider adopting a budget ordinance amendment for FY 2025. Ms. Osham.
This amendment appropriates $70,000 from the general fund's fund balance to cover the cost of increased property, equipment, liability, and vehicle insurance premiums. The electric fund is amended by $600,000 in make-ready broadband anticipated expenses and revenues. The grants fund is amended to recognize 3 police grant awards totaling $62,500. The North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program, presented in agenda items 12 and 13, for the law enforcement liaison grant in the amount of $30,000 and $25,000 for the overtime grant, and from the U.S. Police Canine Association for the AKC Reunite 2024 Canine grant in the amount of $7,500. And it is also amended to reduce various parks and recreation and police grant budgets by $35,541, adjusting the budgets to actual based on reimbursed expenses. It is requested that the board adopt this budget amendment as presented before you.
Board have questions?
I do. Kim,
Yes.
why is our insurance gone up $70,000? I mean, other than the obvious, but I would have thought that we'd have had, is that not like under a contract for a year or something?
We didn't have the final quote in time, so based on what we budgeted and the discussion with the agent, we were just short by the $70,000 from what they actually came in.
Okay.
We did our best guess during the budget process.
Just, I had kind of a follow-up question to that. Is the reason that we didn't have the quote during our budget deliberation is that the policy year does not coincide with our budget process?
George, could you tell us when the policy expires? When we deal with the underwriters, We let them know when our budget time period is, and they always try to give us the best guesstimate. But like Kim said, unfortunately, when they finished looking and doing their evaluations this year at the properties, especially Stanley White, the new properties we added, that estimate came in higher than expected. But George, what is our period?
That's correct, and we run our insurance runs with our fiscal year, so it terminates when our year transitions. Unfortunately, we do not get the actual premium number until the last 30 days before renewal. It's very similar to everyone's homeowner's insurance or business insurance. So they give us their best estimate, then the underwriters provide us with the actual premium that they're going to apply.
So are you saying that when we added the new building Stanley White on, that's when the insurance went up?
Stanley White's got a little bit to do with it. It's just they gave us a broad range of expectation with property insurance this year being such a big issue. You know, the best we can do is on our side is estimate. The agent estimates what they think the underwriter is going to come back with, and we use those to project a budgeted number. And then within the last 30 days after we've presented budgets to you, we get the actual premium. That's going to be the invoice. So there'll be a discrepancy of what we're estimating, what the agents provided, and then what is actually the premium. I'd like to say we could get it right when I bring you the budget in December, but a lot changes in 4 or 5 months when we start doing budget talk.
I would also like to point out that during this past budget process, we did reach out to the North Carolina League of Municipalities for their insurance pool to give us a quote. After they looked at all of our assets, they would not give us a quote based on our price that we currently pay for our insurance.
Any more questions? What's the pleasure of the board on item number 17?
Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt the budget ordinance amendment for FY 2025.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Prill.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Aster.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Next up is appointments. Alderman Kinsey, I'm sure you have one for the Board of Adjustments.
I do.
Do you have someone for that?
Yes. Brenda, I don't want to mess this guy's name up, his last name up.
Actually, the one that you were going to make is not for the Board of Adjustment. It was for HPC. Mark Wartner, reappointing him.
Mark Wartner. Did I say that correctly?
Close enough.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion for Mr. Mark Wartner for the HPC.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, he is hereby appointed. Do you have one for Board of Adjustment, Alderman Kinsey?
No, sir.
Okay. Board, it looks like, clerk, don't we have still one for the Police Civil Service Board? I think I remember seeing that we made an appointment, but that gentleman was ineligible.
That's correct.
Do we have any applicants for that?
We do not.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other appointments?
Is that appointed by any board member?
Yes.
Yeah, civil service.
Yes, it is. And it's, I think the only restriction is they live within the city limits. It's not ward specific. So.
Okay.
Any other appointments from anyone? Okay, move on to attorney's report.
Nothing for tonight, Mayor.
City manager's report.
A few things to update you on. So, Tropical Storm Debbie, through Saturday, at some parts of the city received anywhere from 7 to 12 inches of rain. The traditional areas of low-lying property in terms of roads flooded as we expected, but we're fortunate that the majority of those roads cleared within an hour. We had a few outliers from that. On Sunday, there was a 3-inch rain in Taberna. That 3 inches came within an hour. Also on Monday, they received another 1.5 inches of rain within an hour, and so we saw some flooding on Old Airport Road and on a couple of streets in Taberna. In most instances there, the streets drained off within an hour as well. I want to thank all of the departments and staff for the storm prep, and also thanks to Public Works who was out there Sunday evening and Monday afternoon and into the evening to address the issues in Taberna. I've talked to Alderman Best and Alderman Royal about some other concerns that they have been made aware of in their areas. And if you are aware of any other flooding issues that we haven't addressed, please let us know. The next thing we've got for you is tomorrow night, Wednesday, August 14th, the Land Use Ordinance public forum will be held at Development Services starting at 6:30 p.m. Code Right will be making a presentation. Following the presentation, there will be an opportunity for a Q&A session and to provide any input that the citizens may like to provide. There will also be a meeting for developers coming up in November, and so that we'll be reaching out to developers to get their comments on this process as well. This is really just the start of this. It's going to take a year to a year and a half to fully implement this, so it will be a timely process. The clerk had reached out about a potential work session for Tuesday, August 27th. I don't think we received a consensus on this, so we still have that out there, and we really need to have a work session to discuss projects for proposed bond referendum and also discuss the upcoming Electric Cities rider. So we've got that. But another work session that we need to look at, and we're recommending Tuesday, September 10th. That's the day of our first meeting in September at 2 p.m. for a work session to bring Code Right in to give an update on where things stand with the land use ordinance. And this is very important that we do this, and we're strongly encouraging that you adopt it for this date. They're going to be in town on this date. They're going to be doing public input sessions as well, but the board really needs to provide their input for this, and it's going to be very detailed. So we're looking at a 3-hour session. So we really need to consider the September 10th date for the work session. If the August 27th is not going to work for the board, we'd like to look at least the second meeting or some other time in September for that follow-up meeting.
So board's thoughts on those two questions?
I have a question, Foster. Why are we waiting so long to involve the developers? I mean, the ones, what they're reading, and one that has contacted me thinks that we're well into it, into the code rewrite, and they have to wait till November to be involved.
Right. I know that they have a timeline for Code Right does for how they're going to implement this. And when I had a conversation with the Director of Development Services earlier this week to inquire about some timelines for this, they said that is just when it regularly was to fall. And again, this process is going to be up to a year and a half to implement this. So they really are at the start of this. I'm looking forward. I'm going to the meeting tomorrow night to find out a little bit more about what they've been discussing. So I don't think they're being left out of it, but they are being included in the process at the appropriate time. And of course, developers are welcome to come to hear what they have to say at these meetings also.
So are they going to announce some of the recommended code changes at this meeting?
Yes, they are.
Big picture, yeah. We're 30,000 feet, and over a year and a half, we narrow it down to the precise sentences. But right now, we're just imagining and structuring how it's going to look. Yeah. And this, so that there are now issues that one can either support or not support, as opposed to...
And you don't think the developers would need to be involved in that process?
Yes, but again, we're trying to establish something for them to even talk about, as opposed to saying, what would you like?
Okay.
What they're doing is saying, here are the current best practices across the state. Give us your feedback. How we can, do you like it, not like it, what can we do with this? Okay. That's an easier discussion. I think it's a more efficient discussion. But I think, as City Manager said, we're a year and a half from this. So the cake is just starting to be baked. And then tomorrow night will be a good introduction at 30,000 feet. Here's your entire code, and here are some concepts to start getting our minds around big picture changes.
So, Mr. Hughes, you're suggesting a work session at 2 o'clock on September the 10th?
Yes, sir.
How does the board feel about that?
That's the same.
That's the same day as our first meeting in September.
Approximately how much time?
3 hours is what Code Right is asking for, and so we'd like to do from 2 to 5, and so if we have to go over a little bit, we've got a little bit of a cushion before our meeting.
I don't have a problem with that.
I'm available.
I am too.
Just keep the agenda like that day. So we won't be here.
Okay, so could I get a motion to call for a special meeting on September the 10th at 2 p.m. at City Hall to discuss the land use ordinance update?
So moved.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And
But
you,
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I do agree with Alderman Aster about that 6 o'clock meeting. Now, can you make a motion that we're definitely,
We will certainly look and see what comes up at that, and yes, we can look at that.
thank you, sir.
and we'll revisit the other workshop?
Yes, we'll have the clerk reach back out on some other potential dates in September for the follow-up meeting for the bond referendum and electricity's rider. And the final thing I have is at the special meeting that the board had Friday a week ago, 8 days ago, or 10 days ago, regarding the vacant seat with Ward 6. News media started picking up on that story on actually August 2nd. The city sent press releases out and updated social media and websites on that Monday the 5th. To date, we have received 2 letters of interest. The clerk sent those letters out to you today, and that's currently where we stand with information on that.
Mayor, speaking of that, I think it's probably, we've discussed the process of sending in a letter and a resume, but we didn't set a deadline date. So I would like to set a deadline date for August the 23rd, which would give the clerk time to send us an email and we can review them before our meeting that following Tuesday.
Any feedback on that?
I feel that we need more time.
I thought I saw, received some information from city clerk, it was August the 27th. It was, that she needed all the information back by August 27th, before August 27th.
That was a proposal when we were looking at sending out a mass mail, and we didn't do that.
Well, if we do it on August the 23rd, that's going to be, I mean, that's given over 4 weeks for anybody that would be interested to, I mean, because we still have 2 weeks or 10 days or so before the deadline date, and then we can discuss it at the 27th meeting.
Any consensus? Alderman Royal said more time. Any thoughts?
Well, we got a lot of stuff coming up too, so we need to really move on with this thing. I mean, this land use ordinance, we definitely need to get a Ward 6 alderman in place.
I would, if we're gonna have a 3-hour workshop on something on September the 10th, it would be nice to have somebody in place by then. And plus, just so everyone knows, being the former alderman for Ward 6, all those phone calls that were going to Alderman Brinson are coming to me now, so.
So what you think now? So do you need a motion for that, or just a consensus?
So, you're saying the cutoff will be August 23rd, and then we can discuss it at our, August 27th meeting.
Right, and that will give us over the weekend and to review the resumes and application, or resumes and letters.
Well, I would like, me personally, my preference is when city clerk receives them, she go ahead and shoot them to me, so I can have a chance
That's a good idea too.
to view them, and if I need to contact that person to talk with that individual, I would like to have that time and opportunity. So if the board don't have a problem, well, I don't see there is a problem with her.
No, that's good. Everybody good with the clerk sending them to us as soon as she receives them? Okay.
and then we can review them and move from there. Me personally, I don't have a problem with the 23rd, and so we can discuss it at our 27th meeting, but if we have some more individuals submit in their letter or resume. Right now, we only have 2.
Yeah.
So, I think if by that time frame, if by the 23rd, we have no more than 2, then I think that's another discussion, whether we move forward or go ahead and do what we have to do with those 2. But I would like to see, and I have an opportunity for more individuals to submit in their information for that Ward 6, but
I would also keep in mind that I ran unopposed the second time I ran for that seat. And I think the last election we had, was there 3?
Mm-hmm.
3 unopposed? You didn't have them. You 3 didn't have. So there was 3 seats that didn't have but 1 person that expressed interest, and that's to fill the entire term. So we'll see what happens. Alderman Brinson, do you want to make a motion? Are you okay with a motion for the 23rd setting the deadline? I'm sorry, Alderman Aster. Sorry.
Oh.
Alderman Brinson was on my mind because that's the reason we're sitting here going through this.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we set the deadline for 5 o'clock on August the 23rd for resumes and letters of interest to, for the 6th Ward seat, Alderman seat.
I would like to put in there, if we've only had 2 individuals apply.
I know of someone that's called me today that lives in the Greenbrier area that's interested, and he asked me the process, and I told him what he needed to do.
Okay, well, and so do I know of 2 individuals, so, but got to submit their information.
Okay, so we have a motion to set the deadline for August 23rd at 5 p.m. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call vote starting with Alderman Royal.
Alderman Royal,
No.
Alderman Aster.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best.
No?
Alderman Creel,
I'll say yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes. Motion carries 4-2, I believe.
That's correct.
Okay. Is that all you had under City Manager's report?
Yes, sir.
Okay, new business report. Alderman Creel.
Just one item real quickly. If I'm not mistaken, I think all of the new doors at the farmer's market have been installed.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And the farmer's market board is very pleased to have new doors. And if I'm not mistaken, staff will be putting in a couple of new fans on the interior, bigger fans than what's there now. Don't know if that's scheduled yet or when that'll be done, but again, the farmer's market board, they're very pleased with the work that has been done.
And yes, we're waiting on the arrival of the fans, and once that occurs, staff will put those up. And then I think probably over the winter time, they'll do some restroom renovations over there as well.
Yep. Nothing further, Mayor.
Okay. Alderman Royal.
Yes, I would like to take the opportunity to commend the Public Works Department and Mr. Childs, your staff did an excellent job during the storm. We had a power outage, and I just was so elated that it was only short-lived. And I appreciate all of the staff that worked so diligently during that time and to make sure that we were safe, everything was done efficiently. And I don't believe we can overstate or oversay thank you enough for the wonderful staff that we have for our city and the hard work that they do, leaving their own families, their own comfort to go forth and make sure that all the citizens are safe. So again, I say thank you, and I hope that you will convey that, please, to the staff. Thank you so much. Nothing further, Mayor.
Okay, Alderman Aster.
I too would like to commend George and his staff. We had a mess in Bern. I'm not sure what was causing all of it. We had some blockages, most likely from the high water and the runoff, creating blockages in the pipes and stuff. I was out quite a bit with some of the crews, and let me tell you, those guys walking around in waist deep water in the woods with all the snakes and the muck and everything else, you got to commend them for doing such a great job. And it's dangerous work too, because once these guys find a blockage and they pull the stuff loose, that water is like rapids that comes through there. It can certainly take one of the guys away in a minute, and if he gets caught in a culvert, it's bad news. So George, and we got rain gauges and we checked, and we look like it's between 12 and 16 inches is what we received in Taberna. So it was George, your guys just did an outstanding job. I pick up the telephone and call George, and they were out there in just a few minutes. I also want to talk about, and I had a conversation with Jessica about this, about a change that I would like to see made in our ordinances. We have lots, and unfortunately it seems that it's just maybe one developer just having the majority of the problems, but we have lots. I should say builder, not developer, but we have lots in some subdivisions that have no positive drainage. The water runs away from the house to the middle of the yard, and in the back of the yard is 4 foot higher than the house is, and it just sits there. The water was up against the side of the houses and the foundations, and this wasn't just 1 or 2 homes, this was numerous homes. So I've asked Jessica to please include in the ordinances, so we can all certainly have to approve it, but the builder must submit before when he gets his building permit, a water flow plan for that building lot, which means which way is the water going to drain, which way are they going to slope the lot, and what outlet will it drain to prevent this from happening. It's just a shame. I walked in a lady's backyard the other day that it was over my knees, and there's just nowhere for it to go. So I've asked Jessica to please include that into the ordinance, right? And she said that was an ordinance that was fairly common down in the beach area, and she was glad to put it in for consideration later. And that's all I've got.
Okay, Alderman Kinsey.
No, sir.
Okay, Alderman Bess.
Yes, I too would like to thank our city staff, Public Works, Electric, Water, Sewer, Police, and Fire, and your staff. Y'all did such a great job making sure that our citizens were little or no outage, at the time or whatever the problem may be. I just want to thank y'all so much. We can't do it without you. You're our greatest asset. And I also want to thank Mr. Hughes, Mr. City Manager, for him always keeping us updated. You update me, and I appreciate it, and the board. I appreciate it because it gives me an advantage. So when my citizens call me, I can be able to give them some informed information. So thank you for that. There was one other thing. I wanted to know, I guess, George or Assistant City Manager, Mr. Williams, when will the lights be put in on the walkway over on Garden Street? Because I've seen citizens utilizing that bridge already, and I just want to know when is the lights forthcoming?
That is the last piece. So the handrails that are put in were constructed in a way that it'll be recessed up in it, so we have that scheduled in the coming weeks, once we free a crew from other issues that were going on the past week or so, but we're scheduled to do that. So you should see that in the coming weeks, that the lights will be on.
Yeah, great, because like I said, I have seen some citizens utilizing that bridge. And are you gonna go in and cut away a lot of that debris at the foot of that bridge?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It's protruding out into the bridge, like at the end.
In the Sutton end, we're gonna actually pour concrete on that end, so. We had thought about barricading it off, but it is usable during the day, for people to follow that way, and that's much safer than trying to go down the street where there's no shoulder. So we decided to leave it open even though we don't have it lighted in the evening.
Right. Thank you, sir. And that's all I have.
Okay, just two quick things. One, I want to make the board aware, the board adopted an ordinance several years ago about cemeteries and how the flowers are picked up. I received 2 emails right after the storm that staff went through and picked up silk flowers off of graves, and they were disposed of. So staff followed the ordinance that's in place, but our ordinance says that they will be picked up after 1 week. Don't think that's really reasonable. Sometimes I get questioned about why we don't just do what staff recommends all the time, and this is different staff, but at the time, that's what staff recommended was a 1 week pickup, and now I realize that's probably not a good thing. So I wanted to see if the board had any concerns if the manager were to look at that with the attorney and possibly updating that ordinance so we're not taking people's flowers off their grave when they're in good condition just because they've been there a week. So it would require an ordinance change, so staff would have to bring that to us at some point. Any issues with that?
No.
Okay. The second one, this just happened to be a conversation the clerk and I were having. She was talking to some of her fellow clerks, and they asked her, why were we not in recess over the summer? And she said, well, we've never been in recess, so did a little research. There are quite a few cities in North Carolina that, I don't know how they do this, Mr. Attorney, because you have to have a petition of citizens once a month based off statute. But some of them don't have a meeting during the summer months, but a lot of them cut their meetings down to 1 during the summer months. So I know staff's going to be working on preparing the calendar, our meeting calendar for 2025. I think that usually comes to us in October, if I remember correctly. So just wanted to throw it out there if the board had any desire, because if you look at some of our meetings in the summertime, they are fairly light. We've had 2 or 3 items at one time, and you come here and 45 minutes to an hour, we're done. Things that could be pushed to the next meeting. So I just figured I would offer that up to you and let you know that's an option if the board had any desire to look at possibly going to like 1 meeting during the summer months. Staff have any comments on that?
It would also give an opportunity to add in some work sessions throughout that schedule as well.
Okay. Just want to make you aware of it.
But now we always just have 1 meeting in December as well.
That's correct. That's correct.
Well, my initial thought is that if we go from 2 to 1, the 1 meeting we have is going to be a longer agenda.
Sure.
So everybody needs to be aware of that.
And it would obviously have the petition of citizens in that 1 meeting that we have that month.
Yep.
So just a thought, because it stays lighter longer, as you can see. So it's, I want to throw it out there. I don't believe we need a closed session, do we?
No, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
When you finish.
Sure, go ahead.
I did have one other thing for new business.
Sure.
I wanted to know, with this water, the rain we just had, and, it really put some water in a lot of areas. Have, I don't know, Mr. Childs or you, the city manager, have anyone that has staff or public works, stormwater, have y'all gone out and checked these drains in these areas that, that we had these developers these contractors come in and clean out these canals and ditches and spent a lot of money, invested a lot of money. Have that been addressed?
Public Works crews, myself, assistant city manager, we've all been out during these storms. And I'll let George come up and talk about that, because cleaning out all those areas has significantly helped our situation greatly. And George, you can address that in more detail.
Yes, it is, as part of our normal maintenance during every week, that is part of it, is to check the main outlet and outfalls of our drainage system. And as the city manager mentioned, we've had a great reduction in phone calls because of flooding or drainage issues since the Cat A and work has been done. Now, with that said, where we saw flooding from this past week were historic places that are low that we don't have adequate infrastructure, which we're looking at those areas. Or it could be a smaller part of the drainage system or a smaller finger to that system that becomes blocked and floods a certain area, a smaller place. There was also, in addition to that, lots of systems were just overwhelmed. When we get 25% of our annual rainfall in 10 days, our system's overwhelmed. So a lot of it was just a large volume of water, basically in a 4-day window. So if there are areas that currently have backed up water, those are the ones that need to be called in. They are not an issue of the water's receding because of heavy volume. It is because there's something blocked up. So those are the ones that need to be called in.
Thank you, sir.
Hey,
for explaining that.
I got to follow up with that if you don't mind. George, that ditch that we were in off Newsontail and runs all the way over to Airport Road, was that included in the Cat A work?
I would have to go back and verify for sure. But I can
Because
find
that's
out.
my recollection, it was not.
I don't believe it was, as it runs through private property. We have gotten communication with prior property owners in that area to go through there and clean it out, and that's likely we're going to have to do that again. Because a lot of as the water comes up in that drainage basin, it takes all the debris on the forest floor and puts it into the drainage system and then clogs the pipe. And it was a repetitive problem as we had these short bursts of high intensity rain.
Well, it doesn't help either when they go into that branch and they did the cut and drag, and they just drag it up, and then we get high water, which makes it all float back down.
Yeah, unfortunately,
and clogs
in
everything up.
certain environmental areas, that was all we were able to do.
Yeah, I realize
by
that.
regulation.
Alderman Kinsey?
George.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. On the flight bicycle building there, how much is he on his property from the ditch line?
His building is entirely on his property.
Repeat?
His building is entirely on his property.
Okay. So the corrosion from the ditch is not his property? Or is it his property?
Well, we have a tremendous amount of city's drainage that comes through that outfall, that being one of our largest outfalls in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So we do owe some obligation to controlling that embankment, especially with the angle it comes through under the culverts under Trent Road. And that was creating some of the issue that we wanted to armor that ditch.
Okay.
George, while you're up there, could you talk about the difference in design from Red Robin and that ditch project?
Yes, and a lot of that had to do, there were totally two different types of projects. The Red Robin, we've got a sewer lift station right there.
Mm-hmm.
We've got part of that lift station piping in the bottom of the ditch.
Mm-hmm.
So there was additional armament that needed to go into that area to protect the utility asset also, not just the embankment asset. Additionally, we had access to both sides of the property. We could not get in right against the building with equipment. We were apprehensive to stack large amounts of material adjacent to his building. So we were limited in scope. The contractor did exactly what we asked them to do in scope. We met multiple times with Mr. Flythe on site. In fact, at one point he had requested additional stone. We had some quantity left on site that had not been utilized, and we did put it in place it higher than the contract had originally obligated us to do. So, we have gone through the steps. We've inspected since 2021 multiple times. I've got reports from the engineers regarding prior concerns. He had concerns after the Cat A. I've got a report right up on that. We've monitored it monthly, and I can provide all that at a time of inspection when we meet with him.
And just one more thing, after the storm, can you talk about the integrity of that work in that area?
Yes, we saw no structural failure in that. We might have had one or two stones roll, but it has got a grounded base to it.
Well, is his property actually eroding above the rock?
He had some erosion under the foundation of his building prior to our work, and that was documented in a prior report that we found. The roof drains weren't maintained. There was actual vegetation growing in the gutters. The downspouts weren't connected. I don't know how long that had been going on prior to us doing work on that drainage feature.
Well, in regards to that, if you would, I would like to talk with you about it. That is my ward, and
Yes,
then I would like for us, you and the city manager and I know Mayor Odham said he'd be glad to meet, but if you'd like to meet, that would be great. But I'd like for at least the three of us to meet with Mr. Flight and just address his concerns and all of that documentation.
Yes, ma'am.
I know
can
he's
provide.
fully aware of that, but
He is.
if you would bring that with you. But I'll discuss it with you before we go.
We'll set that up as soon as we can.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Alderman Best.
There was one other question that I had. I noticed that we also have a meeting August 29th, and I see it's only 3 board members. So is this not a mandatory meeting for us? It's NCL, North Carolina League of Municipalities Board Rules of Procedure. It's the 29th at 1 to 3.
I don't even have
That is not a called meeting of the board. That's
Okay.
a training session
Okay.
that 3 board members have signed up for.
Okay.
Anything
So
else?
if never mind. Thank you.
If more sign up, do we have to call for a meeting? Was that going to be the question? I don't think so, because we're not actually discussing any business, right? It's just a training. Okay. Anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.
Kim, you need these back?